Today we're going to explore design control in cable manufacturing and how this is supported by CableBuilder and CableMES.
My name is Chris Huntley. I'm the CableBuilder product owner. I've been at Cimteq now for 3 years. Prior to working at Cimteq, I worked at Aberdare Cables in South Africa for 27 years in the design office, and I implemented CableBuilder at the Aberdare factories in South Africa. And I'm also currently based in South Africa working for Cimteq. So what I want to cover in this webinar is, first of all, I would like to give a high-level overview of CableBuilder, just some of the key features, etc. And once that's done, I would like to go into design control and discuss how CableBuilder can support your design control process with development designs as well as industrialized designs. And I would just like to point out here that this is intended to be used as an add-on to your current quality management system to help improve on it. It's not a replacement to what you've got. It's just something that you can use in conjunction with what you currently have to ensure that your processes and your quality measures are good. So first off, what do we mean by design control? Design control is something that's talked about in a lot of international standards. ISO 9001 is one that comes to mind for me personally. But basically, it's a process within a company's quality management system that defines the steps required to verify and validate a design. And why it's important is it ensures that companies have products that are designed, developed, manufactured, and tested in accordance with defined processes and procedures to produce a product that meets the specification. So what are the typical elements in design control? This is a very broad overview, and obviously within your organization it might be a lot more detailed, but there's 4 aspects to design control. There's the input, that is the cable specification. What do you want your cable to meet? It could be an ISO specification, an IEC, it could be an ANSI, whatever, but it's a specification that you need to meet for that cable. The output is the actual cable design. So it's the cable design that you've created in accordance with the specification. The verification is saying this cable design that I have created does in fact meet the requirements of the specification. And then validation is once you've verified the design, you send it to production for manufacture, you make the cable, and then you validate its performance, etc., against the specification. So they are the 4 steps of a cable design, or all of design control. So looking at CableBuilder. CableBuilder is a modular software, which means that you only pay for what you want. Within CableBuilder, the design module is the core functionality. That is what you get first off. And then there are add-ons that you can buy as per your requirement. So the design module is for cable design. It creates BOMs and routines of cable designs according to specifications. You can get costs against those BOMs and routines, and you can generate reports and images like technical data sheets, etc., against those cables as well for submission to customers. There's CableBuilder 3D, which is currently undergoing quite a big revamp, which will give you photorealistic images of your cable. There's CableBuilder Enterprise, which is a very nice feature which allows you to design cables in a multi-plant environment. So you can have alternate BOMs and routines for the same cable designed and manufactured from different locations. You can have CableBuilder quotations, which allows you to generate quotations for customers, tenders, orders, etc. There's CableBuilder Manufacturing, which allows you to calculate accurate costs for a cable design, taking into account the actual cost of setup, scrap, etc., based on length, as opposed to considering setup scrap once per 1,000 or whatever the case is. And then you have CableBuilder QA module, which allows you to track and audit orders in a quality environment. Within this webinar, I will touch heavily on the design module, and the QA module will come into play slightly. The other ones don't really feature in this webinar. So if we look at the key features in CableBuilder, the main feature for me is it's configurable to the way you want to operate. This means that you set up the rules, you define the formulas, you define the processes, you define the cable standards, etc. So you set it up in the way that you want it to set up. It's the one very unique thing about CableBuilder. If you go to different customers who use it, they will have set it up differently. So you'll never get a like for like within the customers. It's in your hands to set it up in the way that works for you. You can define or differentiate between conceptual and industrialized designs. So within the design control environment, if you're looking at a development product, that's a conceptual design. You can properly define that to make sure that it's not released to customers, etc., and it stays within the development cycle until you fully industrialize that design. You can design in a sub-assembly, flat bill, or a combination of both. Normally, this is defined in customers by the way they set up their ERP, but you're able to design in the way that you want to design. As I mentioned earlier, there's a multi-plant environment which allows you to design BOMs and routings from different factories, different locations, using the machines within those locations and using materials for those locations. So you can have the same design within multiple plants with their own individual costs. In addition to that, the default CableBuilder allows you alternate resources within the same plant. What that means is if you have 3 insulation lines, you can design with a preferred routing, but you can also identify if the preferred routing is busy or occupied during time of order, you can move it onto insulation line 2 or insulation line 3, and you have the standards, the speeds, etc., the targets for the operators against all 3 of those resources, or as many resources as you want for that matter, with associated costs, etc. So you've got full visibility of what your options are, and for the shop floor, what the targets are for manufacturer. And then you have global or specific formula streamlines the process. What this means is you can have standards for argument's sake, an optical fiber cable, a power cable, a medium voltage cable. These all can have their own unique formulas and rules specific to them, or you can have rules global to all cables. Entirely up to you how you set it up, but the flexibility is there. Just a footnote within CableBuilder, a lot of industry refer to a standard as a specification, like a UL specification. Within CableBuilder, a standard represents a family of cables, like a medium voltage cable, a low voltage cable, etc. So this is an example of how people can set up in a multi-plant environment. So plant A may be the factory in America, plant 2 may be a factory in Europe. Then standard 1.1 could be a low voltage cable or a low voltage product family, and these are the processes required. So it might be a wire drawing, a stranding, an insulation, etc. Standard 2.1 may be the same family of low voltage cables with the same processes, but standard 2 will have machines in Europe, standard 1 will have machines in the Americas. So you can create a design with BOM and routing in standard 1.1, you can create the same one in standard 2.1, and they will each have materials supplied from their local region and machines located at their local region, and you can quote customers out of both locations, and you as a company understand where your best and optimum point of source of supply would be. So it really is a nice feature within CableBuilder. So now we look at how CableBuilder can help companies with their design control process. If you look at what is some of the major key points of design control, at the top of the list is normally documentation and retention of records. So it's really important that you have your trial files, etc., that tell you what you did, when you did it, why you did it, and how you did it. Now within CableBuilder, you can keep all these documents. And obviously you can have your physical files, but you can have it all in CableBuilder as well. So each design has a document repository where you can attach one or more documents to it. So these documents may be meetings of minutes, it may be specifications from clients, etc., etc. It can be documents that you put it against the design, and you've got a record of it against that design. Each design also has a text editor where you can insert comments against that design, and it's a record of what you did at certain times. So if 1 year down the line you've got a design, you think, I wonder what, I can't remember why I did this, you can have it in these comments section that says, this is why I did what I did on that day. A really nice feature is workflow. So what workflow says that you can create user groups and say that in order for this design to be accepted for manufacture, it has to go from the design office to a senior designer, from the senior designer it has to go to manufacturing, etc. You can define the stages that must be followed and the approval stages that it must go through before that design is approved. And you'll note here there's some comments. I will show you that in CableBuilder now. And let's just go to that now. So here's the screen of CableBuilder. So what I'm saying there is, number one, you have this document repository here. So if you look at this design, I've attached a document. Now you can have as many documents as you want, but you can put a name to it so you can tell people what it is. You know who's added it, you know when. If I open this, so there's the document there. So it tells you it's an example of a document that's attached to the design, could be meeting minutes, etc. So this shows you that you can take whatever documents, be it minutes, be it a cable specification from the customer, etc. You can attach it to this design so that you've always got it there. The second one you can do is, against each design here, you have a view design text. So here's a text editor. You can put in your notes here to say, I did this on this day, just as a gentle reminder to yourself why you may have done certain things. Obviously, if it's quite important within the audit trail, you wouldn't put it here. So these are just sort of casual notes that you might want to put in there. And you can add to it and save it as you want. This is a active live document. And then the third thing, if we look at here, we've got this approved design alternative. Here is the workflow I spoke about. So if I put there, please approve this, this will go in the workflow stages I have defined. It will go from the initial stage to the next. I can approve an email. So what this will do, this will send an email to the relevant people that I choose here. So these would be in my workflow user group, and it will send emails to them that will tell them you need to give attention to this design. And if we have a look here, there's the comment I made here. So it tells you at the draft stage, Chris said on this date, please approve it there. And it's gone now to the design review stage. And it can go through the various stages like this. At any time, you can reject it here and you can send it back to this person and say, please redo it, it fails because of this reason. So, and you will always have a record of this whole trail. So if we look into that approved design alternative, you'll note that's what I said, approve it, that's what it was rejected. And this is continually growing. So you've got a full trail of everything. And this is especially nice with industrialized conceptual designs, where manufacturer may want to confirm machines, etc., etc., etc. And this is not unique to conceptual designs. This can be part of your everyday process. It's entirely up to you. It's not mandatory to use, but it's a really nice feature to have and a really big value add when it comes to the design control process. So let's go back to the presentation. So the next way that CableBuilder can assist with the design control process is to avoid human error. So how can we do that? So CableBuilder offers the option to automate certain functions, and you can do this fully. You can have a fully automated design from start to finish. You can have a partially automated design, so it will only do certain areas, or you can have everything manual. Within CableBuilder, if you're a new customer, we will install a database on your server. This database will have a lot of example standards with processes and formulas, etc. in there. You as the customer can take these and use them, accept them, or you can change them to the way you want. And within that database, we have included a number of example automations for you to take and expand on or use or take out if you don't like them. And I'll show you examples of those just now. But anyway, automation, the option is there to minimize human error. You can set up specific rules per standards according to individual specifications. In the example I will show you just now, we've got insulation, where you can say for this material type against this specification at that voltage and this conductor size, these are the thicknesses of insulation that we want. And these are examples of the way you can do it according to different specifications. So within insulation, you may have different thicknesses. I think in my experience, normally the insulation was normally more or less the same, but within your bed inner jacket and outer jacket, these may differ, and you can apply those rules according to specifications. You've got the option to list raw materials based on the grade of material. So within CableBuilder, we have something that's called the option formula. So you can, for argument's sake, with your range of PVC insulations that you have, you can list them to say PVC according to this standard or that standard. And when you select that in the drop-down, only those materials that meet the defined requirements will display. So again, it minimizes human error. This again is an example of automating. So this is a conductor table, and this is an example of the layer in the conductor layer. So a designer would choose the class of conductor, the area, the type, and the profile. It will match these to the columns in the table, the first four, and then it will populate all the values that you've got in the table. And this table can grow. It can be more than just this. This is just an example. So we find a lot of customers, especially when it comes to conductors, they don't calculate the values, they use measured values, because the majority of the cost is in the conductor. They want to make sure it's correct. So they know what they require to meet the resistance of the specification, and they design according to that to make sure that they meet that resistance. And by using tables, we find that most customers use that as the optimal way. You can mitigate design risk with early warnings. So we have layer validation in CableBuilder. That, as an example, if you're doing an insulation and you forget to put in a thickness, or the table doesn't contain the thickness you want, and you haven't set it up to bring in a thickness, and it's blank, you will get a red robot or traffic light that tells you there's an error in this design, and it will tell you where the error is. And I will show you an example of that now. And the last thing is the color coding of input-output. So if you look at this screen here, within the layers of CableBuilder, you've got layer selections. Now, that's where you put your inputs. But in addition to saying within this layer input section, that's where you must have the inputs, you can also color code the input cells. So in this case, it's green. You know everything that's green should have an input. In addition to that, you can make these attributes or these selections mandatory. So as it stands, they're not mandatory. If you have a little red asterisk next to it, it will not allow you to progress unless you put a value in there. So a nice fail-safe measure. So if we can just look in CableBuilder, okay. So what we're going to look at now, so let's go in this, and just a nice feature of CableBuilder here, I'm at this level of a design which has got 3 cores with an outer PVC jacket. If I expand the tree here, you've got visibility of the whole design here, all the levels, and I can navigate to anywhere within this design from that tree, but I'm always still in the upper level there. So it's really nice to be able to navigate your whole design without actually leaving the design. So if we look at this, so here's our insulation. Within this layer, I've sort of read in what the key would be against the table. So we're looking for the number in the table against the 16 gauge conductor, UL specification, a PVC insulation, and a 600,000 volt. So this is the table here, and I think I've got it here in row 18. 16 gauge conductor, UL specification, PVC material, and 600,000 volt. Your thickness should be 0.024. And if you look here, that's what it is. Now, I'd just like to go through a few other things, and then I'll show you in how it actually works. This is the drop down where I said you can define the types of materials, and this is just a basic example. You can define this very granular if you want. So I've said PVC general purpose, and you'll note in this selection box, only PVC general purpose are available. So there's a black and a natural, depends on the one I want. It's a natural color. And if you look at the bottom here, there's my PVC natural. So if we go to my table here and we look at this one here, so let's change it from a PVC to an XLPE insulation. We would expect to see a 0.028 thickness. Now, I know normally XLP wouldn't be thicker than PVC, but the reason the PVC is smaller is because that's a skin insulation, so there's still a skin color over and above that, where this XLP is solid. That's why the XLP is bigger. So we want to see a 0.028 for XLP. So first of all, if I change this to XLPE there, you'll notice now I've only got options to choose XLPE here. Let's change it to, let's say, blue for a color, because this is not skin color. And just take note, there's my thickness for PVC 0.024. Here is my materials for PVC still. If I save it, this thickness should change to 0.028 as per that table. And it should add materials for XLPE and remove the PVC material. So it's just, and hopefully my line speed is behaving because our power has just gone off. So there you see with the XLPE, the thickness has changed to 0.02. You'll note my lookup key has changed there. And if we look at the bottom, the materials are there. So this is a really nice feature. So by having one input there, if I just reverse what I did, let's move it back to PVC. Let's say I want my natural PVC and make that natural. By limiting the designer's inputs to these three, and it could even be less, you can automate beyond this, but by limiting the input of the designer and by saving there, you can actually automate. In insulation, for argument's sake, you automate your thickness, so that's changed back. You automate the selection of materials. So it's a really nice way that designers can use to make sure that they don't choose the wrong material. So I said earlier on about the validation. If I, for argument's sake, remove this thickness of insulation, so for whatever reason, there's no thickness in this design of insulation, and I try and save it, it should tell me there's a problem. So there it is there. It says no insulation defined. If you look at the top here, you can see there's 3 traffic lights. You can get a red, which is typically a warning, error. The second one could be orange. You define these as 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is a red as an error. If you make it 2, it's orange. People normally use that as a warning. And a 3 as a yellow, people use it as information only. So that's quite nice as well. So again, a really nice feature. And these rules, we've set them up as examples of, and we've got a couple in that we show people, but ultimately it's within your power, within your capability to expand that, to have a look at all the areas where you feel might be relevant. And you can add to it over time if you sort of notice trends within your organization. Okay, the next way that CableBuilder can help with design control is we have, as you expect with most systems, user access control via license files. That means the salesperson cannot affect designs, the designer cannot tinker with quotations, etc., etc. And obviously, if we look at the designer, not everyone can change formulas. So you define who may affect formulas. You define who within the design arena can do what, which is very nice. You can take it to the next level. If you have got 3 cable standards of product families in your factory, you can say this designer can only work on cable standard 1, this designer only on 2, this designer can work on all 3. So you can define it that granular as well if you want. I'll come back to active status workflow we spoke about earlier, where we said that you can define that this design has to go from this person or this stage to that stage to that stage, and you cannot quote or anything, you cannot approve this design unless it goes through all those workflow stages. In addition to that, we have a design active status. I use this a lot in industry when I was in the cable industry myself. And what this means is you have attributes that you define as primary. Once the design is complete and confirmed as correct, you can activate the design. What this means is any attribute that is primary is locked for editing. No one can change it. until you version the design. So by activating a design, you protect it, you lock it, you cannot change it until someone deliberately goes and creates a new version and makes that change. Now, where that really helps is I had rules in place that said that we could not quote on any cable that was not active. We could also not send any cable that was not active to our ERP for manufacturing, because a design may not be complete. The salesperson doesn't know that. So by making it active, you sort of put those control measures in place to make sure that you're protecting what you actually manufacture. User groups control who has access where. I think I mentioned that earlier. I jumped the gun. So you can say that this designer may work on that cable standard only, this designer on that standard, etc. Design locking. You're in a system where you may have 3 or 4 designers. You may have designers across different plants who can work on the same standard, for argument's sake. You want to be sure that if I'm busy working on a design today or at this moment, that the next person cannot come and also work on that same design, because somewhere along the line something's going to go wrong. So you can lock the design that says if person 1 is on the design, no one else can affect it. It's locked until that person is finished with it, and once he's finished, then it becomes open again. And then read-only licenses allows access to people like in manufacturing, etc., to view a design. It's really very handy because they have first-hand knowledge of what's in that design. They don't have to keep going to the design office saying, print me this, print me that, show me this, show me that. They can view it, but they cannot affect design at all. And it does a lot. It stops a lot of paper trails, etc. So now once we've created a design, we need to verify it. So verifying it to be correct against the specification. So obviously companies have their check mechanisms in place. With me, it was a second person did all the checks against the specification, etc. But within CableBuilder, how can CableBuilder help us verify the design? So first off, as we went through the validation earlier, you've got the traffic light. So as you set them up to say, check this, make sure that you've got all these checks in place as a first stop to say, make sure everything looks good in this design. You can generate data sheets. Now, I'll show you these in a minute. And against these data sheets, if the specification has certain performance criteria, it might be an asymmetrical fault rating or something to that effect. You can check the technical data sheet to make sure that that value is actually what you want. You can generate the cable drawing, so you can have a look at the drawing. It's a visual representation. You know you've created the design. You know what you expect to see. You can look at the drawing and make sure it is what you want. Is actually what you want to see. And then we have the quality module, the QA module, where you can add designs to this. And there's actually a 2-step verification here. The first step is you can check the design against the specification. So within the QA module, you call in the specified values. You can compare that to the design value, and you can also compare it post-manufacture to the actual manufactured value. So first off, we said data sheet. So this is a typical data sheet. This was done by one of our customers. And these type of things, we help the customers do these. We know from experience that every customer likes his own flavor to how a data sheet should look. So we help them create this. All of these values were calculated from within CableBuilder. They don't come as defaults, these electoral stuff, but we are more than willing to help customers get to that and to help them get it. So if we look at this data sheet, on the first page here, you've got all your dimensional information. So you can look at this and you can compare insulation thickness to the specification, insulation type, etc., etc., etc. So it's a little stop to say, is this what I want to see? In the data sheet, we have a drawing. Visually, you want to have a look at it and say, is it what I want to see? Yes or no. Within the specification, you may have requirements, asymmetrical or symmetrical faults, or other. And you can have a look here, and there you can say, is this value actually meeting what the specification says? If we look at this, here's the conditions. Obviously, these values here are calculated under specific conditions. Within CableBuilder, users have got the ability to change these conditions push save, and these values will update accordingly. So it really is very nice. And this is a very nice data sheet. If you don't have the data sheet yet and it's just a quick check, within CableBuilder, you've got the 2D drawing. So we can just have a look at this drawing. It's not the same as the data sheet I had, but again, it's a visual representation. Is this what I want to design? Is this what I expect to see? And you can use that. So really very nice. Then I mentioned the QA module. So I've done a very basic setup here. This is a separate license, but the same as in the design module, users have got the ability to set this up the way they want to set it up. It's not a fixed format by any means. You do what you want with it. It's busy swearing at me because this one there is out of specification there. But let's just put it in specification. Sorry, I've got to get my eye. I'm in the dark here at the moment, so just bear with me. So this, you call designs, one or more designs into the QA module. And what I've done here, I've just done something very basic for insulation. So you've got the specification insulation thickness, you can read that in. You can have tables, you can read it in. You've got the design insulation thickness, you can read this in from the design itself. These are all by means of formulas. And then you've got the measured insulation thickness. That would be a manual value that you've entered after you've made the cable. And so if we save that, you'll note 0.02424, this is all nicely and in specification. So if we save that, everything should be fine, and it tells us it passes. If, for argument's sake, this changes, it should now throw an error and tell us that our design insulation thickness is below the specification. So it's a nice early warning. Again, if we say that it's not easy in the dark here. If I save again, that our design is correct, but our manufacturer is wrong, and it tells us the manufacturing thickness is below the specified value. So basically what it says, you can take this and you can then check, number one, your design. And if you're happy with the design, if you've made the cable, that you can then check the actual manufactured. And within this module, you can set up reports to do test releases, compliance reports, etc. And the nice thing here, it's telling you, because that measured is below, it's a fail. If it was in compliance, it would pass. So not only does it give you the error, but if you do the report, it will tell you pass or fail. And you can apply this wherever you want. It's really is very flexible, and you can set it up the way you want. Okay, so validation. So now we've designed the cable, we've checked that it's correct, we've sent it to we send it now to the ERP to be manufactured. So how does CableBuilder help with this? So number one, we know what all information needs to go to the shop floor, to our ERP or MES to go to the shop floor. So within the transfer from CableBuilder to the ERP, these can be uniquely defined. It's not a fixed number of things that can go through. You tell the interface exactly what you want to go through. So what the operator needs to see, you can ensure that that actually goes through to the shop floor. You can define test requirements and acceptance criteria based on ITP, inspection and test plan. So within CableBuilder, you can say for this specification, this is the inspection and test plan, and that can be sent through to your MES so that when it gets manufactured on the floor, the operator knows exactly what he should test, when he should test it, and what the criteria is. You can set up defined hold points. It's really very related to what I said earlier. So you can say, after stranding, check this conductor for resistance. After insulation, do the following checks, etc., etc. So you can tell the operator exactly when to do what tests. I showed this earlier where you can, once you've done the measured values in the lab, etc., you can enter it into the QA module and you can save it and you got your pass fill. And like I said, you can generate test reports with automatic pass fill. So now we're looking at design change and version control. So once you've got through the conceptual stage of industrialize these designs, specifications may change. You may get new machinery and you may change material suppliers, whatever, but things happen that you need to update your design. And I know from experience that whenever the auditing bodies come to audit your process and your cables, they love to see that you've got documentation. They want to see that you can show them why you did, what you did, when you did it, and who did it. And CableBuilder allows that. And I'll show it to you just now. And I'll actually pass this page because I'm actually going to cover this page in CableBuilder. It's a bit more, both these pages, I think it makes more sense if I take it in CableBuilder. It's just basically a repeat. So if I've got my design here, you'll note at the moment it's on version 2. So if something happens, I need to change this. I need to version this design. It could be you've done value engineering on your conductors and you've managed to reduce the dimension or put the mass down slightly, or there's a specification change or whatever reason. So you call that design in, and you can do this on mass to a lot of designs at once. It's not on a one-for-one basis. You can do this on a lot of designs at once as well. Sorry, wrong button. So I'm going to say I want to version the design alternative. So the first thing is you can say I want a version of to version this design only, or I want to version this design and all its parent designs. So where that comes important, if you look at this tree, you've got sub-assemblies. So this insulation is a single design that's used in multiple upper levels. So if there's a change to this dimension in this process, especially if it's dimensional, you need to make sure that that change filters through to the top. And that's why we say, do you want to version upper levels as well? So you make the decision. Do you want to version just this? So if it was just maybe a change to a description on the design or something like that, maybe you just do this design. If it's something that's going to affect the upper levels, especially if it's dimensional, whatever, you actually want to change upper levels as well. I hope my spelling is good here in the dark. So you would give it a version. Now, I know this is a bit of a nonsensical version. Normally you would have a document number, a design change control number, etc. You'd put that in here so that in a year or two down the line, you know, if you open this design, you view your versioning history, you can go back to a document. It says that there on the page, this is the document. You can pull that document out and you've got it in front of you. So we'll do that with this in the parent designs only. So what this will do is create a new version for this designs and any upper levels associated with it. So we're now at version 3 because I've versioned this design a few times. So if I view, and now what you do, you make the change and you go through the process. You verify it, you approve it, you activate it, you send it to your ERP. But if we look at the version list, so you'll note now we've got all the versions. We were on 2, we've come to 3. But what is nice here, you've got all the versions here. You've got the description from the initial copy. You've got the reasons why you created the other versions. So this is what I say, you would have change document control number ABC so that you know you can pull that out if you need to. You can see when the change was made here and the date, and you can see who made the change. Really nice here, if I say, well, I wonder what happened in version 1, I can click on the number and I can get into this design. But if I go into the process itself here, you'll note I cannot save anything. So I still maintain, I have visibility of all the versions associated with this design, but only in read-only mode. The only version that I can change or that I can affect is the latest version, and only if it's not active. And so it gives you a lot of control within your organization. If I now wanted to say, well, what's the difference between version 2 and 3? I can click them and say compare versions. And you can do this against as many versions as you want. And what it does, it generates a matrix of the whole cable of version 2 and 3. And what it will do, I haven't made any changes really. As you know, I've just created the version. But if we had made changes, it would highlight in red here in this column here where the changes are. So it's a really nice visual view of where the changes are in the design you made over time. That is it from me from a CableBuilder point of view. I will now hand you back to Ken to pass on to Dan.
So, once the design is verified in CableBuilder, the design can be sent to ERP, where a production order can be raised, which then gets sent over to the MES for manufacturing the product. So design validation is required to ensure the manufactured product meets the requirements of the specification. CableMES will ask CableBuilder for the design attributes requiring validation against the manufactured product. Typically, these are attributes that can be applied to machine runs, for example, conductor resistance, elongation, attenuation, wall or radial thicknesses, insulation resistances, things like that. These attribute values for validation are mapped in CableBuilder so that when the production order is sent to CableMES, the validation is based on the specific requirements of the design. Attributes can be produced and mapped in a customizable and unlimited way depending on the processes, product types manufactured, and capabilities. The mapped attributes from CableBuilder will be imported into CableMES so that the operators, when they're doing the inspections, can take measurements and enter them in. If the value passes the quality parameters, the read is passed, that's okay. But as well, CableMES, if the value is not within the parameters, CableMES will highlight the actual value as a failure, and it will actually automatically quarantine the reel. This stops it from being used further along in the production lines. Here's a screenshot. In the screen below, the reel is now quarantined. This, as we can see here, so we get an exclamation mark there and the little label saying that's quarantined. This will stop the processes from being able to consume further along. So if we were making insulated conductors and one of them had failed the quarantine, when it comes to doing the assembly or the layout, they wouldn't actually be able to use that WIP item because it's quarantined. They'd have to find another product or remake the actual reel or drum. They can actually use the plus button here. So if they know, right, this reel is quarantined, they can click on the plus and that will create another reel underneath. So the likelihood is they'll probably have to remanufacture the reel with slightly adjusted machine parameters to try and make up for the quality issues. I'll just see if I can show you that quickly in MES. There we go, I can see that's popped up. So I have a demonstration that's already set up from this morning, and what an operator would do, I mean, I can't go into details too much about CableMES today, we don't have the time, but this is the screen the operators would see, and actually what they would do is they'd come in and report the quality, and these attributes would be coming from CableBuilder, and the values would also be coming from CableBuilder. So in CableBuilder, they would say, you know, perhaps the standard says we can have a maximum of 2.25 and a minimum of 2.1. So we target something in between. So we take these values from the design in CableBuilder, guide the operators so they know they need to take the measurements for insulation diameter, insulation thickness, and inner diameter, so they can actually come in and put the measurements in. So I'm going to fail this one. I'm purposely going to go above the upper limit. Let's put some values in there a bit too high. We can update those, give that a submit, and we get the pop-up there telling the operator, you know, actually all your values here have failed. They're all above the upper limit. So I could continue that. And at this point, I'd probably need to duplicate the reel and make it again, which can be easily done with a plus there. Type in a quantity of 6,000 meters, like the previous, and then I get the duplicated reel. That's about as much as I can show for now. I'll just go back to the presentation. On to the next slide. So to summarize CableMES, what the key features are. So it is uniquely tailored for the wire and cable industry. It tracks stock movements and availability with barcodes, tracks prediction of progress by measuring length produced and raw material or WIP consumption. It automatically records it automatically records and captures sensor data from machines. For example, the typical one, I suppose, is spark tests and other tolerance alarms, but it could be anything that you can connect to a network. We should be able to read from it. It has the ability to record and capture manual test results from production runs. Sometimes, I don't know, people have like X-rays and cameras and all sorts of things that they can use to detect certain things. They could be complicated or simple sensors, doesn't matter too much. And it also has the ability to quarantine and record non-conformances of production runs. It also integrates, of course, with CableBuilder, ERPs, but as well, you may need to integrate it to label printers for the barcodes and other systems, etc. That kind of sums it up from my side. I'm going to pass that back over to Ken to run the Q&A.
Yes, I'll take the first one. It's to do with CableBuilder. And so the question is, can this determine the diameter under the jacket and the cable OD? The answer is yes. What happens if we install CableBuilder at your site? It comes with predefined processes and standards to use as a starting base for any customer. And we also have a whole lot of formulas in there, and we give you the formula document that we've used to say that this is how we've calculated these dimensions, these masses, etc. And then you can accept them or adapt them to the way you want to work. But the simple answer to the question is yes. In every design you create, you calculate the dimensions, you calculate the masses, etc. All the calculations are part of the system, part of the feature that you've got. Is CableBuilder able to see the breakdown of all components within the design of a product if the ERP system only has one layer bill of materials? How does CableBuilder give the ERP system the information to create all the BOM layers? So that sounds like a flat bill. A flat bill is a one design code with multiple operations in it. Within CableBuilder, you can design as flat bill or subassembly. Subassembly is a unique code per single operation. Flat bill is multiple operations in one code. And you would design that cable with your full bill of materials, and you would split the operations up. So you would say, there's the insulation, there's the layup or assembly, there's the bedding or the inner jacket, etc. So you would build that, you would structure it exactly as you would make it in CableBuilder, and you can send that entire structure through that has the different operations and raw materials, etc. associated with each operation. Interfacing with the ERP is quite common for a lot of our customers, and to date, and this is in flat bill and subassembly, and to date we haven't had any issues. So I don't anticipate issues, and that's with most popular and maybe even smaller ERPs we've integrated with. Dan, here's a MES question for you. Can you record duplicate test measurements on the same reel?
Yeah, that's true. We can record duplicate measurements. So I mean, what could happen is if somebody took some test results and they were very close to the upper limit or the lower limit and they wanted to rerun them again just to be sure, you can record additional test results if you want. You can do that as many times as required. I think I have another MES question as well. Can CableMES capture tests from extrusion machines? For sure, we could capture test results from any type of machine really, as long as it can connect to an MES platform like a Vela or something like that where we're good to go. And I think we've got another question for you, Chris. Is there a limit to the number of documents that can be added to a design?
No, there is no limit. You can add as many as you want, and you can keep them for as long as you want. That is not a problem whatsoever. There's another CableBuilder question here. How do you distinguish between industrialized and trial designs? There's many ways you can do it. It's according to the way your company is set up. To give an example of how we used to do it in my organization, within our ERP, we classified cables at the finished good level. So anything that was a conceptual design in the trial stage, the material group within the ERP was set to trial. So what this meant is that cable could never be sold or released to a customer. It had to go into a specific warehouse in stock, and it could only be released to a customer once all testing, etc. was finished, complete, and that cable was verified as correct, and it was physically moved over onto an industrialized type of material group. So you can really distinguish between that and make sure that you cannot release conceptual designs to customers by accident. So that's fine. I think the one thing I did mean to say during my presentation, I'll just mention it now, is if you would like a demo on any of your own cable types or constructions, I'll be more than happy to do that for you against any cable construction you've got.
So can CableMES detect underlengths manufactured? Yeah, so So we can set up a tolerance in CableMES, which says that the length must fall in between, I don't know, 5% of the order length, something like that. So if you manufacture a little bit more or a little bit less, we can set up the system so that would automatically quarantine that WIP item or something like that. So you can double check if you need to maybe check with the customer if that short length is okay, or do you need to produce another reel or something like that. We can kind of handle the workflow for that. That's not a problem. Can CableMES combine orders? So I think that's a question about, let's say you have multiple black cores that are potentially for different production orders, but you want to combine them together to reduce setup and scrap, stuff like that. You certainly can. We have the ability to merge similar items together, especially if they have the same raw materials and the same dimensions. We can merge those together and route them down onto the same machine. That's not a problem. How long does CableMES keep test records? Actually, that's more of a business decision, I think. How long can it keep test records? As long as you want to keep them. So the measurements live in the database. As long as you want them, really, they will stay there forever until we archive off or delete that data. So generally, we just keep it. We might archive some of the older data just to keep the databases a bit smaller, but we don't purge data actively. We like to keep it there for auditing purposes, etc., etc.
Okay, Dan, I see there's another CableBuilder question here. Can CableBuilder generate a smart part number based on wire specification, metal type, installations, and other characteristics of the wire? This way, the cable part numbers are all in a similar structure for quick understanding. The answer is yes. There is a recode feature where it will look at certain characteristics like you've explained there, and you can say, you as a customer can say, this is how I want my code to build up based on those characteristics. And yes, it will create it for you. And if it exists, it'll tell you it exists, and you can either create a new alternative, or you can say, all right, stop the bus because it already exists. The same applies in other like quotations, etc. We actually use that in industry myself, where you built up the quotation code based on certain things as well. So the answer is yes, you can.
I think there's another CableBuilder question at the bottom popped up now, Chris.
Okay. Question is, how CableBuilder manage the design of data cables where the thickness insulation? Well, yes. If I can just share my screen. So the question is, how do you handle design of data cables where the thickness of insulation depends on impedance and different pair lay lengths? Again, you can set the rules within tables. The tables I had were against the conductor size, the voltage rate, and material type. You can change voltage rating for impedance and et cetera, et cetera. So you can set the rules that define the thickness. So in any way you're doing it currently within Excel or something to that effect, you can set the rules and say, this is the impedance, or this is the mutual capacitance, whatever the case may be, and you can set the rule to define the thickness in there. I think that the way that you should view CableBuilder is, if you can apply a rule, if you know the logic, you can apply the rule. That really is sort of the top and bottom of it.
So I think the question was, is there a native connector between Sage X3 version 11 and CableBuilder? I think the easiest answer there is to say we don't have a native connection, do we, Chris? But we could probably, that'd be something we could work on. That would not be a showstopper. That would stop you from taking on CableBuilder. So we tend to integrate different applications each time. I mean, we do have a standard integration, but usually that's for ERP. But each time we connect to something like a CRM or a quotation system, we'd probably have to do that as a custom piece of development.
I think what I will add to what Dan has said is a lot of our customers do require customizations. And it's something we're very open to. So we do consider everything, and as and where possible, which is most times, we do customize for individual customers. So it's not a case of this is what you get, take it. We will customize. If there's things that you need that's away from the norm, we will look at customizing them for you specifically. I think that's one thing with CableBuilder. You can go to 3 different companies and it might look different in all 3 companies because it is set up and tailored to the way they want it to work. And that is the beauty of it. The control is in your hands.
So lastly, thank you again for joining with us today, and we hope to see you at future Cimteq webinars and events. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.